Sorry, guys, a little bit flustered. I don't think anybody is in here right now. But in case somebody has slipped in and it's not registering on here, um, the dogs, of course, started in, wanting outside, doing all kinds of things. I didn't even have time to use the restroom before I started this, in which case I am going to go and use the restroom real quickly. But let me just put something in the chat, uh, considering that it looks like there's nobody in here for me to actually be talking to. And I'll remove myself for Okay, well, I'm back. But, I might be doing this for an audience of one, being myself tonight. But that's what I get for advertising late. Also, I didn't even notice if like Dead Pit or anybody else was doing any streams tonight. Uh, so it could be possible if there's something big, huge going on that I don't know about or missed out on. Uh, just tightening that thing up a little bit. I have to tighten it up every once in a while. Of course, I don't want to be too loud. I don't want to be blasting you guys. Oh, it does look like there's one person in here, so maybe it did pay off to be a little bit late with this. Because CK has told me that it's better if you do them the latest you can, but sometimes it's hard for me to do them late on weeknights when I have to work the next day. So I try to do them, around 8 o'clock or something like that. But I also am realize that other people also have to work and have to get up early. And some people aren't working from home like I am. Some people actually have to go to their job, at a physical location. They can't just stay home. Now we got two in here. So it's good to know that there's at least two people in here. I'm hoping, some of the regulars, of course, my hat was askew again. Uh, Good Lord. There we go. That's a little better. Maybe my camera that's actually a little crooked. I don't know. Who knows? Now we just got one in here. I guess people don't want to see me fixing my hair. But like I have said before, I think a lot of people pop in and out of here. Some people might be having internet problems, but I think a lot of these people that we see one or two pop in here and then they pop back out. I really think those people are like drive-by viewers. They're just checking out everybody that's doing live streams to see if there's anything interesting on. And if they stop at yours and it doesn't seem interesting, then they pop back out and go somewhere else or go to bed or whatever the case may be. But hold on just a second. Brandon's having some issues. Poor guy. All right, Brandon. So, anybody that's watching this stream, if you see Brandon struggling to walk, don't think I'm a mean mama if I don't get up and just run and help him. A lot of times I try to give him time to get himself up. But if he starts like really whining a super lot or something like that, which I think he's going to do it. I'm going to have to pick him up. But the problem he's having, he just falls right back down again. So it's almost impossible for me to keep him up all the time. Not in my legs, buddy. Why don't you lay down, okay? Come on. Now that person must have been a drive-by person too, because they left. Well, I'm beginning to wonder if I should do this tonight or not. Um, or maybe I should have tried to do it at 9. I mean, I did the one last night at. And please, guys, if you're watching, somebody's watching this later, or they come in when I'm talking, don't take it as I'm irritated because people aren't coming in here. I blame myself for not giving people enough heads up on these things when I do them, or in this case, I was running behind and I, uh, because of things going on around the house with the dogs and stuff. Um, and two, there was shit all over my glasses, so it was like looking through a dirty windshield or something. Um, but I feel kind of weird sitting on here talking, and I'm basically talking to nobody right now. um, so I was kind of hoping. Sorry to be picking at my teeth, but there's something in my tooth again. And I see that when I'm on camera, and it's like, that is really gross. And I know I do that a lot, and I do apologize, guys. Um, but I really wanted to do this mainly because, for whatever reason, and I know you guys don't need to really hear all my personal life and all that stuff, but I've been feeling really depressed. If I'm not active, if I'm not working, or I'm not doing one of these live streams or something like that, if I'm just sitting back there in the living room, I'll find myself just crying over nothing, basically. Um, just not feeling myself lately. And I did notice that I've gained quite a bit of weight back after using Noom and losing like 35 pounds. I seem to have gained 25 of those pounds back. Um, don't really know how, unless it was just because I'm not getting enough steps in. And you guys probably notice on the camera that I have gotten larger again. I got a little bit smaller there for a little bit. I was down to my married weight of 145 pounds. And now, I don't know if y'all can tell it. I kind of hope you can. But now I step on the scales in the afternoon and weigh 170. So I'm like, where in the hell did all the weight come from? But I think, sadly, I'm getting ready to go through menopause, or in the beginnings of menopause. And that's not supposed to cause you to gain too much weight. But at 46, I'm age 46. So you got to, think about that, because I've been having some symptoms. I've been having some hot flashes. My uh, womanly visitor every month has not came in the last 2 months. Um, so I'm pretty well thinking something is up. So, um, but I'm back on Noom again. And I'm gonna be using the pay per month version. And I'm probably gonna stick with it this time, instead of when I lose weight, cutting that off, because I'm thinking that I need that little extra motivation. And some people might think $70 a month is a little steep for weight loss type of stuff, but you know, it's not like I'm wanting to have gastric bypass or something like that. I'm not that large, but I'm larger than I want to be. I don't want to be 170 pounds. I look at myself in the mirror and it's like, geez, Louise, Dana, you were looking pretty decent. Now my face is fuller and rounder. I'm bigger around my middle, and I just don't like it. I don't feel good about myself when I look in the mirror. And when you don't feel good about yourself when you look in the mirror, you kind of want to make some changes. Let me go help Brandon again, guys, because I don't want anybody to think that I'm just letting my dog suffer and struggle. So I got one in here again. Again, I don't know if this is this one of my regulars or not. I've been on here blabbing for about 20 minutes. Probably a little bit less because I had to pause and refresh or whatever. because I wasn't quite ready when my intro ended. But anyway, I'm going to get off the weight loss stuff because that's probably boring to people. But if you guys have noticed in the last few months that I plumped up again, yeah, I have. So I'm going to try to take off the weight again. My goal is to get down to 125 pounds. I would love to get down to 125 pounds. Now, see, I lost that person again. So they must have thought, what a weirdo on there talking about weight gain and stuff like that. Um, which Steve has warned me. He says, I don't want you getting sick or anything. Um, but I need to do something. The last time I lost the weight, I was about 180 pounds and I looked terrible. And I don't want to get that way again. And I'm edging up that way. Um, and I probably have kind of gotten lax on my healthy eating habits and probably been eating things that I shouldn't be eating, and not getting enough steps in and all of that, and being sedentary a lot more since I've got this work from home job. So enough about that. I do want to remind everybody. I just lost that person too. I do want to remind everybody that I will be doing a new My Dinner with the Palma on Thursday, starting at 8 p.m. Eastern time. And again, I'm going to have to refresh my memory on the two movies I'm going to be doing. So hold on here, guys. I know they're not two movies that I currently own, so I will definitely have to be finding another outlet to watch them on. So hold on here. My mouse has been like, this is a wireless mouse, and it's been a pain for like a while now, and I don't know if I'm just not charging it up enough or what. But so the next two movies I'm going to be discussing is Mission to Mars and Femme Fatale. Mission to Mars is from 2000. Femme Fatale is 2002. So you guys can look forward to that. Have not yet decided what the dinner portion will be for that. I also want to remind everybody that I kind of decided last minute, since Friday is Friday the 13th. I don't normally do a stream on Fridays. Usually that's my day of rest kind of from doing streams, even though I enjoy them a whole lot. But I decided for this special occasion, being Friday the 13th, that I will do a watch along for the original Friday the 13th, not the remake, even though I know the remake's not that bad, and not any of the sequels, but the original Friday the 13th. And I know that the original Friday the 13th doesn't even have Jason in it till the end, but I thought, what the hey, I haven't done a watch along for Friday the 13th. Why not kick off this year's Friday the 13th right, and do a watch along for that. So I will be doing that probably starting at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I hope everybody can join me for that. And so Saturday, I will also be doing a watch along, and that will be for Slumber Party Massacre. And that's the original Slumber Party Massacre, not that horrible, horrible remake. In this case, that remake was horrible. But this is the fun one, the original one. So I hope everybody can join me, at least in the chat, for both of those. If you're interested in joining me live on the stream, for either of these watch alongs or for the My Dinner with the Palma, I will be glad to put those links up, the StreamYard links, so that you can click on it and go backstage so that I can add you to the stream. I would be love to have as many people as we could get in here. As always, I believe we can have up to 9 plus me in here at one time. Now, I know some people's internet kind of craps out on them. I know Uncle Bill has told me that his does if there are several people in here, which happened to be the case on New Year's Eve when we did the New Year's Evil watch along. But we don't know till we try. So if you're interested in it, yeah, come one, come all. I'd be glad to have you here live on the stream with me. Also, on the horizon, um, I wanted to do a series of streams on the films of Quentin Tarantino. And I was trying to come up with a catchy title for it, similar to My Dinner with De Palma, but for Tarantino. And so I finally came up with one. There's something about Tarantino, and that is going to be my series of live streams on the films of Quentin Tarantino. So you can look forward to that. I may have those on Tuesdays, just following along with the tea theme, because I told Steve at first that I was going to start those when I finished the My Dinner with De Palma. Um, but I think I might go ahead and start it next Tuesday. We'll start There's Something About Tarantino. And of course, I'm going to hold on, guys. Let me pick Brandon up again. I think this is going to be a common occurrence. Brandon, honey, you're going to have to lay down. I'll let you go in there. You're gonna bark and stuff and drive Daddy crazy. So anyway, I'm so sorry for anybody that is watching for half a second for all the interruptions. I did want to let anyone know that happens to watch this later, the movies I will be covering. Now, these are going to be only the movies that Tarantino has directed, not necessarily the ones that he only wrote. So, let's okay, so I don't know if I can be able to find Lovebirds in Bondage, but I will try my best. But I do believe the short film My Best Friend's Birthday that he did in 1987, I do believe that one is available on YouTube. So I can refresh my memory on that. So I will plan on kicking There's Something About Tarantino stream off next Tuesday with My Best Friend's Birthday, which, keep in mind, is a short film, and Reservoir Dogs. I'm not really going to cover television shows either, because he did direct an episode of ER. We're only going to cover the movies. When I get to the Four Rooms movie, I don't know for sure if I'll cover all of the segments, because he only directed the Man from Hollywood segment. So I may just do only that segment. I'm not really sure yet. So, but you guys can look forward to My Best Friend's Birthday and Reservoir Dogs discussion next Tuesday. So that's a whole bunch of stuff that we got on the horizon. I've also got a bunch of watch alongs lined up for the remainder of the month on Saturday. So you guys can all look forward to that. And now while I've got two people in here, there's still nobody in here chatting. But I am going to continue the Twilight Zone from the 80s um, episode discussion for season one. And I covered the first three discs, the episodes on the first three discs last night. Now I'm going to cover the final three discs for your enjoyment tonight of season one of Twilight Zone from the 80s, or the new Twilight Zone as it was referred to. Hey, Texas. Good to see you in here. There have been people pop one or two people popping in and out of here for several minutes. And I didn't know if it was like drive-by viewers, the kind of people that just are looking for something entertaining to watch, and evidently I wasn't entertaining enough and they were popping off and going somewhere else, or it was people having trouble getting on, or internet troubles, or whatever. But I do see that at least you and one other person are in here right now. So we're going to kick this off and get started with the episodes from disc 4. We're going to cover disc 4, 5, and 6. And then we will be officially finished, or I will be officially finished with this episode discussion. So the first episode on disc 4 is Night of the Meek, which is a retelling or a remake of an original Twilight Zone story. So a drunken storefront Santa, played by Richard Mulligan, is depressed by the many children who go giftless and starving every Christmas. He gets fired from his job, but then he is given a wonderful gift. This aired on the original Twilight Zone in an episode starring Art Carney. And I have seen the original one too, which is also very good. Oh, Texas, you say, I just came in to say hello. I'm at a friend's house. He's taking me for a test I'm having at the urologist tomorrow. Oh, well, I hope things go okay with you, Texas. I'll be thinking of you. But, you stay as long as you want, or as less as you want. I'm just glad to see at least one person that came in here to these dang flies. They were easing up, and now they want to swarm around my head and stuff, and it drives me nuts. But I'll try not to complain about that. So this is another one of my favorite episodes. It was a favorite episode in the original Twilight Zone, as well as the 80s version. Well, you're very welcome, Texas. I always, wish the best for people. I don't want anybody to be sick or anything like that. This one was another episode that was not horrific in any way. I think Richard Mulligan does an excellent job of playing the storefront Santa who has a little bit of a drinking problem. He gets fired, but he's got a good heart. This guy's got a good heart because he really cares about the people in his community or his neighborhood. And he also cares about people all over the world, which makes him a natural for what happens to him throughout the course of this episode. Because once he gets fired, he goes home to his apartment, and of course he's drinking alone, and some Christmas carolers come and are singing outside his window, and he's just so touched by that. These are children that don't have much at all, but they still are going around the neighborhood spreading cheer to everyone during the season. And he says, he tells the lady that's with the children, he says, "Oh, that was beautiful." He says, I wish that I had something that I could give you." And the lady thanks him, and they go on their way. Um, so he's going to take out his garbage, or what he thinks is his garbage. So he's got the garbage bag. He's going to take it out to the trash, and he notices when he gets outside that there's not exactly trash in this bag. There are toys in this bag, and later on, other things, things that adults would want as gifts and things like that. So, when he discovers there are toys coming out of this trash bag, he's like, "Kids, kids!" He's running after them. "I have something for you," and he's just so overjoyed. So they wind up having a big Christmas party, and the guy that he was working with at the mall where he got fired is helping him out. And like basically, people are kind of in a line, or they're gathered together and they're having a Christmas party. They have eggnog and they have all this other stuff. So basically, people will come up to him one at a time, and he'll say, "Well, what gift would you like the most?" And he's able to pull it out of this trash bag by some magic. And so his ex-employer, Mr. Dundee, who owns the shopping mall, um, comes to where Mr. Corwin is handing out gifts. And Mr. Dundee is under the impression that Corwin has stolen these gifts from his store. And he, pretty much tells Corwin he's going to come back with the cops, and, Corwin's going to be arrested, and yada, yada, yada. So he does come back with the cops, and the cops say basically, "Well, we hate to intrude, Mr. Corwin, but, can you tell us how you were able to get these gifts?" And he's like, "Well, no, I really can't." And they say, "Well, do you have any invoices or receipts for these gifts?" And he's like, "Well, no, I don't." And they're like, "Hold on just one second, guys. Sorry about that. Brandon, leave. Honey, you're really going to have to go lay down." Okay, so anyway, sorry about that, guys. I took him in the living room. Now, hopefully he'll rest, but if he starts barking, I'll probably have to tend to him again because he'll wake Steve up. But anyway, back to the Night of the Meat story. So the cops basically tell him they're going to have to confiscate this stuff until they get things figured out. And so then, lo and behold, the receipts for everything from Dundee's department store show up in the bag. I mean, there's receipts for everything. So the cops just go away, and Mr. Dundee is just crushed because he was so sure that Corwin had stolen these items with the help of his buddy from his department store. Mr. Dundee's also very bitter because a coat that he had set aside specifically that was one of a kind for his wife for Christmas um, got sold. Um, and he was really upset earlier in the episode and basically told the person that was head of that department that he wanted to see him and whoever sold that coat in his office on Christmas Day. Um, and the guy basically says, "But Mr. Dundee, tomorrow is Christmas." And he says, "Not for you, it isn't." So he's a very, very bitter man. Um, so he's just crushed because he has no coat to take to his wife for Christmas. And he was not able to best Corwin at all. Corwin got the better of him. Corwin won. So after the party's over and Corwin's gave out all the gifts, he comes out of the building and finds Mr. Dundee sitting on the steps, and he's like, "Mr. Dundee, you're still here." And Mr. Dundee's like, "Corwin, how did you get all that stuff? How is it possible?" And basically Corwin tells him it's like magic. And so he not only had gifts for all of the people that came to the Christmas party, he has two gifts for Mr. Dundee and Mr. Dundee's wife. He has the coat, the one of a kind coat for Mr. Dundee's wife. And he also gives Mr. Dundee, I believe, a baseball that was signed by all the Yankees from like the 50s or something like that. Um, so then Mr. Dundee says, "But Corwin, you don't want anything for yourself? You want nothing?" And basically Corwin says, this night was my gift. And he said, "The only thing I would wish is to live this kind of magic every year." So Corwin gets his wish and he turns into Santa Claus, literally with the beard and everything. And up the chimney he goes in a magical way. And some people might think it's kind of hokey, because this was back in the middle 80s. But I still think it's a very nice, warm-hearted movie, or not movie, episode. And so, um, one of the last shots, Mr. Dundee sees Corwin flying through the air in his sleigh and reindeer and stuff, and saying "Merry Christmas." Um, Beautiful episode. I love it. I always try to make sure that I watch it every year around Christmas time. Okay. So the next episode, But Can She Type, also takes place around Christmas time. Not as good of an episode as Night of the Meek, but still a decent episode. Um, it's about an overworked and underpaid secretary played by Pam Dauber. I mean, she has a real asshole of a boss that I wouldn't wish on anyone. Uh, she enters the Twilight Zone when she uses a malfunctioning copy machine. And when she uses this malfunctioning copy machine, she is transported, it seems, to a dimension where everybody adores secretaries, um, and just thinks they're the bee's knees. Also, she goes to a party after she uses this copy machine the first time around. Everybody's just, "Oh, you're a secretary." Oh, she talks to a fashion model who wants to be a secretary. Um, so everything is just backwards of the way that we're used to thinking about certain jobs and things like that. Sorry, guys. Um, but So then at this party, she's also given a business card by an older gentleman who tells her to call. But because she doesn't use, I guess she doesn't use the malfunctioning copy machine for a little bit, she goes back to her universe, like not this alternate universe where secretaries are great and all. And she's back to reality, her sad, overworked reality. And she tries to call the number on the card and it's a disconnected number. So then, about halfway through her day, she's just had it with her boss, her weaselly boss. And she basically writes her resignation note and she's going to make some copies. Um, and she sees some repairmen getting ready to take the malfunctioning copy machine away. And she just kind of knocks them out of the way and uses it anyway. And then she gets transported back to the dimension where the business card number works. And basically the old man comes with a driver in a limousine, and she's going to get to go to their Paris office, and evidently things are going to be great for Pam Dauber's character from here on out. um the next episode, The Star, is also a Christmas themed episode. So all three of these episodes are Christmas related episodes. So Fritz Weaver plays a space explorer who discovers a burnt out planet with the last remains of an ancient civilization. And this one I don't like as well as the other two in this grouping. It seemed a little slower, but it is kind of poignant though, because um I told you it had a Christmas theme, and it does, because the reason why this ancient civilization uh got destroyed and their planet was burned out was because of the Christmas star that the three wise men follow to find the baby Jesus. Um, and so Fritz Weaver's character basically goes through extreme turmoil when he realizes this. And he says basically, we've been celebrating the murder of all these people on this planet. Um, why this planet, why that particular star? He was asking all these questions. It's a decent story. I just didn't find it quite as interesting as the other two previous episodes. So the next episode is Still Life. This one again was written by Garrett Graham and Chris Hubble. So Robert Carradine and his father, John Carradine, both star in the story about the discovery of an antique camera used on the 1913 Amazon expedition and the mysterious photos inside. And mysterious they are because when the photos are first developed, because he finds this film in the camera, he develops it, and he discovers that there's native people shown in these 1913 photos. So he goes to John Carradine's character and he says, "Oh, I want to show you these great photos that have the native people in them." And he was like, John Carradine's like, "I was on that expedition, and we didn't get any photos. There were no photos of the native people." And Robert Carradine's like, yeah, yeah, there were some photos. So he pulls out these photos to show to John Carradine, and John Carradine is like, where are they? You know, because he was basically telling Robert Carradine that these people were kind of a dangerous tribe of people. They were very violent. And if you heard this whistling noise, it meant that you were about to be attacked by these people. So he just couldn't believe that any photos would have been taken of this tribe of people. So he, like I said, he asked Robert Carradine. He's like, "Well, where are they? Where are they in these photos?" And Robert Carradine's like, "Yeah, they're right there. They're there." But he looks at them and they're gone. And so he rushes home, scared to know what the outcome may be because his wife is at home alone. When he gets there, he finds um, this tribe of people taking up residence in his house and basically attacking his wife and then attacking him. So it was told to him by John Carradine that they were scared that the camera would capture their soul. So that comes back to him. So he takes their picture and bam, they go back into the camera and they're trapped inside the camera again. So there's like, I don't know, 6 or 7 of those suckers. Um, and I did enjoy this episode. It was kind of creepy. You would hear the little whistling noises and you'd be like, uh-oh, they're coming for them now. It wasn't one of my favorite episodes, but it was a decent and watchable episode. Now, the next episode, The Little People of Killiney Woods. The regulars at Kelly's Pub, and this one was written and directed by J.D. Feigelson, by the way, who did Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. The regulars at Kelly's Pub are skeptical when the town drunk swears he saw the little people out in Killiney's Wood. I really like this one. This one is very comedic. Um, and you had the still life episode, which was a little creepy, and then you have the little people of Killiney Woods, who or Killaney, I think it's Killaney Woods. Um, but these are not little people in the sense of leprechauns. These are maybe little green men in a mushroom shaped spaceship. So, of course, at first nobody believes him, and he says he got gold from them. They gave him some gold to keep for himself, and also gave him some gold to get him some supplies. Goodness, sorry. And then I guess they're planning on taking this guy back with them to their planet. So there's a bitter guy in the pub who tells him to shut up or he's going to beat the snot out of him, basically, because he's tired of hearing him talk about the little people. That's how he says it. But then that guy actually ends up going to Killaney Woods and seeing O'Shaughnessy, I think, getting into the ship with the little people, as I say. And then he runs back to the pub and tells the bartender and anybody else that's in there, I saw him. And they're like, what are you talking about? What did you see? He's like, the little people. And, it's like it's starting all over again. They're like, oh my God, you're crazy. But so I like this one for the comedic aspect of it. Little bit, quite a bit more lighthearted than the still life episode. So that leads me to the next episode, the Misfortune Cookie, and this was the one that Robert Long mentioned right before I got off of the stream last night. Elliot Gould stars as an arrogant newspaper food critic who gets his just desserts at a Chinese restaurant he reviewed without having eaten there first. And this seems to be this guy's MO. A lot of times he won't eat there. He will just make up a bad review, um, and then hurt these people's business. And at first, he doesn't care who he hurts. Um, so he writes the review, and then he decides he's going to go to the Chinese restaurant. So I think it's called Mr. Lee's, and he goes in there and he orders a bunch of stuff, but he's very snobbish towards the owner and very condescending. And the owner, you guys, a lot of you guys have probably been to Chinese restaurants. Most of the time, they are really respectful of all the clientele that come in there to eat. Um, and, I try to be respectful back, because I think that's part of these people's culture, to to put out a quality several quality food products. I think they're proud of their culture. And I think they strive to provide the best service that they can. I'm not saying other restaurants don't. I'm just saying that I've noticed that Chinese restaurants in particular, the majority of them, um, it's almost like they're immersing you in their culture when you go to these places. So Mr. Lee basically wants to make this guy happy. And he would probably want to make him happy whether he was a food critic or not. But again, Elliot Gould's character really doesn't eat hardly anything. He goes around making these faces at Mr. Lee and his staff, and it's just very condescending and cruel because he knows that he's already written this bad review before he even went there. So Mr. Lee basically asked him, well, was anything wrong? Or, he asked him if he wanted to take it to go. And he said, no, I'm finished. And so Mr. Lee, when he asked for the check, Mr. Lee says, oh, there will be no charge. I cannot charge anybody for something that they did not like. And then he gives him he says a special fortune cookie. And the fortune inside says something to the effect of April comes bringing romance. And he's like, well, what does that mean? That's a stupid fortune. It's not April. So he ends up later on running into a woman named April, who they have an instant attraction and infatuation with each other. And he asks her on a date, and she accepts. And they go to Mr. Lee's restaurant, and Mr. Lee basically he knows at this point in time that the bad review's been written. And he's very upset, and he doesn't understand why somebody would do this to him when he tries to provide quality atmosphere, quality food, all of that. And so basically, Elliot Gould says he'll do a retraction, but he's got to give him some more of those special fortune cookies. And so they both get one, and April says something about a grievous error will soon be made apparent to you. And at that point, Elliot Gould gets really upset and doesn't understand what's going on. His fortune's a little more ominous. He makes April angry, and she basically leaves. So Then Elliot Gould's character gets so hungry that nothing that, I mean, no matter how much he eats, he cannot get full. And he keeps going to Chinese restaurant after Chinese restaurant after Chinese restaurant. And then he gets the fortune cookie and it says, "You are going to die," or something like that. And he does die, basically. So um, the misfortune cookie is definitely an apt title for this one. This one was slightly creepy, not super creepy or anything like that, but it's also a good story too. Okay, here's another one of the next episode is called Monsters. And this is another one of my favorite episodes. I'm really nostalgic for this one. Um, so there's more to nice old Mr. Bendixson, played by Ralph Bellamy, a gentle, grandfatherly man that meets the eye. And so a young boy in town who his friend has moved away, his best friend, in fact, and Mr. Bendixson has moved into the house where his friend had lived. Um, so Mr. Bendixson basically tells the boy that he is a vampire at one time, and the boy's like, "Oh, you're pulling my leg." And then at some points in time, he sneaks into Mr. Bennixon's house and finds a bunch of blood from the blood bank, obviously. Um, but Mr. Bennington basically shows him some beautiful things and also lets him know that he's not the one to be afraid of. He said, "What you got to be afraid of is the real monsters." So you're not sure at that point in time what he's talking about. But you soon realize that the people in this community are getting sick with the same virus. And then it gets wildly out of control. You see the young boy's family, basically, blood coming out of their noses and stuff like that, and then bending over in pain. And everyone in the town, except Mr. Bendixson, turns into a monster, a real monster. They don't remember it the next day, of course. Um, but Mr. Bendixson is just sitting there calmly in his chair. He knows his time has come. And he's actually come back home to die. He left for a lot of years and came back to this small community um, to die. And he knew exactly what was going to happen to him. And so the next day, everybody's back to normal. They don't remember anything. They don't really remember much about being sick or anything like that. And they certainly don't remember what happened to Mr. Bendixson. So Mr. Bendixson, they assume, was murdered and, basically ripped apart. Um, so the boy's sad. Uh, and there's one final scene that leads you to believe that the young boy has been um, kind of given a gift and a curse, that whatever afflicted Mr. Bennington is now in him, because everybody would sneeze around Mr. Bennington like they were getting a cold. So he takes his father out in one of the few final scenes to show him what Mr. Bennington showed him before he died. And the very last scene, the father sneezes and the boy's eyes get wide, and it's like, "Oh, I get it." Whatever, like I said, whatever afflicted Mr. Bennington is now in this young boy. So the next episode it is fairly creepy. A small talent for war. Um, the ambassador, played by John Glover, of the alien race that engineered human beings for finer things 2 million years ago, makes a startling decree. Um, so he basically tells them, we're going to destroy this race because you guys are a failure. Your petty arguments and small time wars and all this are, and he says, you have a small talent for war, and we just basically have no use for you. And they said, well, what if we, the leaders of all the different countries basically say, well, what if we um, make some changes? And he's like, okay, I enjoy this. He laughs. He says, I will give you, until I guess tomorrow. Um, and if you can prove to me that you've made the required changes, then we won't take you guys out. So he does come back, and in the meantime, they have written up like the ultimate peace treaty, which is what they think that this alien being wants them to do. So they show him this big tome, and he laughs. And he laughs like it's the best joke he's heard in about 10 million years. And they're laughing along with him for a little bit. And he says, gentlemen, he says, I think you misunderstood me. We created your race to be in wars, but not this. We didn't want you to be peaceful. We didn't want you to create a peace treaty. So you know what's going to happen, that the entire earth is going to be destroyed by these alien beings who had created them many, many years ago. The next episode, A Matter of Minutes, stars Adam Arkin and Karen Austin. They star as a couple who awaken one morning to find themselves trapped in a vacant, oddly familiar world 4 hours in the future. So I like this one, but not quite as well as some of the other episodes on this disc. It was a little bit creepy seeing the people who were basically faceless. It was like they had ski masks on, and they were all dressed in blue, and they're actually creating things. And so these people, when they woke up, were out of sync with time, and they were actually 4 hours in the future before any furniture was put in the house, before things were subtly changed, and all of that. So they were basically in a place where they shouldn't be. So a fun episode, a little bit creepy, a little bit funny. Just not one of my big time favorites of this season, or definitely this disc. So the next episode is The Elevator, which is a pretty short episode. This one gave me the creepy crawlies because it deals with a spider, basically. This one was written by Ray Bradbury. So, two brothers stealing their father's growth serum, developed to ensure a plentiful food supply, may have bitten off more than they can chew. So, they basically go to the location where their father had his lab. And I guess their father was kind of like a mad scientist type of guy, but he was trying to create a food supply, a plentiful food supply that would end like starvation and hunger all over the world. So they haven't heard from their father in a while. So the two brothers end up going to where he has his lab, basically, and they don't find their father, but they find huge animals like huge rats and huge cats and huge dogs. Um, and then they decide that they're going to go in the elevator, and they show a scene of when the guys were little boys and they were riding in the elevator and having a great time. So the elevator comes down and opens, and they were wondering, first of all, they're wondering where their dad is. Second of all, they're wondering what, um, they know that each animal that was a little bigger than the next was able to attack the others. But it's like, what attacked these gigantic dogs and stuff? Um, so they soon find out that it was a spider. And when the elevator doors open, they're like, "Oh my god, it's a spider!" And it attacks them, pulls them in, and the elevator goes back up. So, um, maybe people might kind of think it a little bit hokey, but my fear of spiders, it was sort of creepy to me, even though I knew it was all fake. Um, the next episode is not one that I would recommend you watch if you're feeling a little depressed, and that's To See the Invisible Man. For the crime of emotional coldness, and this is a futuristic episode as well, so keep that in mind. Mitchell Chaplin is sentenced to a year of social invisibility, a punishment with far reaching consequences. And you may be thinking, well, how did they make this guy invisible? Well, they don't really make him invisible, but I guess it's like a law or something. You will get punished if you talk to anybody that has this thing on their head. They put some kind of machine on your head, and it makes a weird kind of it looks almost sunk in on their forehead. And if you try to, hide it with anything, a hat or anything, like a hole burns in whatever you've got covering up this thing on your forehead, and people can see it again. So when people see him coming with this thing on his head, um, they just turn away, pretend they didn't see him. They pretend they don't know him. They pretend he's not there. And at first he's kind of smug and stuff. He say, "Oh, a year, I can do this." But it soon becomes apparent how lonely he is. He gets to a desperate point where he's begging people to talk to him, to please talk to him. He gets run over, and he tries to call the hospital to have an ambulance come, and they're using something that's similar to the omnicoder in the examination day episode. Again, it's like our sort of like our Zoom meetings and things of that nature. And a nurse comes on and she says, "I need to do a facial scan for recognition." And he knows if he shows her his face, she's going to see the thing on his forehead, and he's not going to get the help he needs. But she says, "I must do a facial scan." So he finally looks up. She sees the thing on his head, and the screen just goes dark. So basically, he could have died, but that's all, I guess, part of his punishment. But he makes it through. And there was a woman who, I guess, his year of invisibility ended before hers did. And he had seen her when they both had the things on their head, and he begged her to talk to him, and she wouldn't. Uh, then she comes up to him whenever he's no longer invisible, and she's like, "You remember me?" She's like, "Please talk to me. Please talk to me." And she starts crying. And at first, he tries to ignore her, just the same way that people ignored him. And then he can't. He's a changed man because of that year of invisibility. he goes up to her and he hugs her. And even though these little sphere things are coming around and telling them, citizen, step away from, the invisible person or whatever. Punishment will be a year of invisibility. And he just doesn't care at that point. So, um, mainly the reason why I say you might not want to watch this episode if you're already feeling depressed is because it is very painful to watch this. At first, you may be thinking, well, this guy deserves it. He's an asshole. But over time, he comes to realize how important it is to not be cold towards people, to engage with people in society, engage with your coworkers, engage with your family. Um, I think that is what the main heart of the story was. Um, the moral part of the story. I really like it, and it is very poignant, and I think it's a very important part of this season one. I really like the episode. It's just I would suggest that you watch it when you're in a heightened mood state instead of a lower mood state. Um, which brings me to the next episode, which is Tooth and Consequences. This is another kind of comedic episode. A despondent dentist, David Burney, near the end of his rope because all of his patients hate him, is saved when the Tooth Fairy, played by Kenneth Mars, appears. So basically, this guy is at the end of his rope. His patients hate him. Um, this beautiful woman who he's in love with will not date him, and so he wants to kill himself. And the Tooth Fairy shows up and helps him be rescued. But I think the Tooth Fairy must have some ulterior motives because he basically asked the dentist what he wants, what would make him happy. And he says for that beautiful woman to fall madly in love with him, for all his patients to love him. And at the end of this episode, he's basically begging the Tooth Fairy to take it all back because the beautiful woman will not leave him alone. She doesn't want him out of her sight for anything. She always wants him at home. But then he's got his uh, dental practice. But all these people want him to be their dentist. They're like, we love you. We want you to be our dentist. But he's got too many patients now, and just more and more patients want him to be their dentist. So he narrowly escapes and goes and jumps on a train into a train car where there's all these hobo looking guys, but they must all be dentists as well. And he basically asks them, well, what happened to you? How did you guys end up this way? And they say, the Tooth Fairy. So it's kind of dark comedy, and I had some fun with it. Again, not one of my on this disc or on this season, but still a worthy episode. Okay, so moving along to disc 5, the first episode in disc 5 is Welcome to Winfield, um, where Garrett Graham plays an agent of death who's trying to get the hang of the job, tracks his quarry to a dusty desert town that's not even on his map. And he discovers a bunch of townsfolk who are very, very old and should be long gone. And it turns out that the agent of death's predecessor, Chin, um, who they refer to, no matter how un-PC this might be, as the Chinaman, um, who had allowed them to just go on living forever in this town that nobody even Winfield that nobody even knows of and hardly anybody ever shows up at. But the young boy or the teenage boy, or maybe early 20s possibly, that is trying to escape death, leaves the hospital with his girlfriend. They end up in Winfield, and those people basically are protecting this boy from the agent of death, played by Garrett Graham. There's some funny moments in it. Um, the town drunk is like basically almost gives everything away to the agent of death. And so, happily, at the end of the episode, after the agent of death talks to Chin several times, he discovers that, hey, I'm just going to leave these people alone. I'm going to leave this young boy alone, um, to live out, whatever life he can have with his wife. And actually, I think I may have called her his girlfriend, but I think they had just gotten married. And so I thought this was a fun episode, not scary at all, just kind of funny and zany and wacky and all that. Um, had a lot of fun with it. Would recommend it. It is kind of one of my favorites of this particular season. So the next episode is Quarantine. So a space weapons engineer who was cryogenically frozen at near death is revived to help a civilization in the future. So this is one of those episodes where things are not always what they seem, you know. So basically, I guess he had cancer. This guy did, and so he was frozen when he was near death, and in the future, they unthaw him, remove the cancer, and then they tell him that there's this meteorite or whatever that's going to hit the earth and destroy it. And they need him with all his expertise to destroy this meteorite. But then he discovers that some of these people in this futuristic utopia sort of are telepaths, and they can basically get inside his head and make him see anything that they want. So what they have done is they've made him see a meteorite, but it's not a meteorite. It is a space shuttle with um, citizens of Earth in it, and or maybe just United States citizens, but they're the worst of the country. I mean, supposedly they're leaders and stuff like that, but they're the worst kind. And these people know that. And so, what this guy was really destroying was not a meteorite, but a space shuttle full of these people. And he goes ballistic. He's like, I can't believe you let me do this. Why would you that's murder? And the leader of this little utopian community basically tells him they had nuclear weapons on that space shuttle. These were evil people. They were going to destroy the world if we didn't do something. And I'm sorry that we had to lie to you. I'm sorry that we misled you. So at one point, you might be thinking these are evil people. They want to go around murdering people. But then you come to realize that if those people were allowed to live with their nuclear weapons, then there would be nobody left. So very interesting episode. I enjoy it. A very serious and somewhat dark nature to some parts of it, but a very good storyline, I think. The next episode is based on a Stephen King story, Grandma. I always liked this short story. Um, I'm trying to think if it was in Skeleton Crew. I wanted to say it was a story that was in Skeleton Crew.
This was directed, or it was written by Harlan Ellison, based on a story by Stephen King, and directed by Bradford May. So, a young boy left by his mother to watch the house is scared to death to go near his grandmother in the shuttered room at the end of the hall.
Now, you guys probably, you guys that may be watching this later as well, um, some kids do have a fear of older people. Like, I'm talking like really old and sick people. But in this case, there's good reason for little Georgie to be scared of his grandma, because his grandma is evidently a witch. And this is kind of told through a series of, like, the boys having auditory flashbacks of his mother talking to his aunt and uncle uh, about grandma. And, they said it in hushed tones, but he still evidently must have heard them. Sorry, excuse me. Um, but his mother has said, make sure that if grandma wakes up and asks for her tea, that you fix her tea for her. And even though he's terrified, he fixes her tea. And this is in the days of the phone, the phones basically being a party line. And you would try to call out, and there would be people just, blah, 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 it's not like phones now. And so if somebody was on the party line, just gossiping or whatever, then you couldn't get through and make a call to anybody. So the boy is stuck in that position. Grandma wakes up. She's Georgie. She's screaming for her tea and stuff. And when he actually does get the nerve to go into the room and get close to grandma, she looks very monstrous at that point. And he believes her to be dead, and he's gonna go and hold a mirror up to her mouth to see if there's any breath coming out. And she grabs him and she's like, "Let grandmother hug you, Georgie." And it's just a very bizarre, nightmarish scene. And the boy's screaming and stuff. And then the next scene, you see him with his head down in the kitchen, his head's on the kitchen table. His mother comes home and he tells her that grandma died. And she's like, "Well, Georgie, she was old and she was sick and it was just her time." And you get the feeling that something's not quite kosher, not quite right with Georgie. And you see him raise up his face and his eyes are glowing red. So evidently, grandma has inhabited the body of Georgie, and Georgie is no longer the little boy that he was. I like this episode. It's creepy. It's Stephen King at his greatest, I think. In short form, it really, really works. This is one of the more horrific episodes of the season. So the next episode is Personal Demons. So Rodney O'Bannon, who is actually the writer for a lot of the Twilight Zone episodes from the 80s, plays Martin Balsam actually plays Rodney O'Bannon, a hack scriptwriter up against the biggest writer's block of his mediocre career, and unable to think of a fresh idea, confronts his own personal demons. And his personal demons basically, I think there may be I thought maybe there was a picture of them on the back here. Maybe it's somewhere else. I know I saw them somewhere, but I was going to show anybody that might be watching this later. But maybe I just dreamed it. I could have sworn there was. Oh well. Anyways, I'm not going to keep searching for that. But anyway, these little Jawa looking creatures, or kind of look like the shrunken people, but the tall man takes the dead back to his planet. He shrinks them down and stuff, and they're the little guys that run around attacking people periodically. They look sort of like that. And so they keep, attacking Martin Balsam's character. And he finally, near the end of the episode, he says, "What do you want from me? What can I do to make you leave me alone?" And one of them comes up to him and says, "Write about us." And so he starts typing, and as he starts typing, they disappear. So not one of my favorites, but an interesting episode nonetheless. The next episode is Cold Reading. A flamboyant young Orson Welles type, Dick Shawn, staging a no-budget radio play. Adventures of Dick Noble, African explorer, invokes the powers of the air for authentic sound effects. This is an interesting kind of comedic episode. It's in the radio days of, the audio extravaganzas that they used to have, similar to Little Orphan Annie and stuff that Ralphie and his brother listened to on A Christmas Story. So it's kind of that type of thing. But when they go in to do their reading for this, if they mention elephants, for instance, elephants really appear in the studio. If they mention torrential rains, it's going to start raining in there. So really a wacky madcap episode. Again, not one of my favorites, but I did find it very amusing and entertaining as well. So the next episode is The Leprechaun Artist. I really like this one. This one's written and directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. Sean McCool, a Hawaiian-shirted vacationing leprechaun, is peeved at being captured by three boys, grants them their three wishes to the letter. And by that, I mean, like, the boys think they got the better of this leprechaun. They basically capture him, take him up in their treehouse, and want him to do their bidding. And so he says, I'll grant each of you three wishes. And so one of the boys wants x-ray vision so he can see under the girl's clothes, which it at first it turns out okay. And then the x-ray vision literally turns into x-ray vision, and he's seeing like the bones. Then he sees the organs, and he's starting to get sick. Slowly that wears off. One of the boys asks that their parents do exactly what they tell them to do. But by that token, they do exactly what they tell them to do. But like one of the boys tells his mom that he wants a certain thing for dinner when he comes home with his friends. When he comes home, his mother is sitting on the couch and she hasn't moved since he left. He's like, "Mom, why didn't you fix this dinner?" And so he has to specifically tell her how to take the pizza out of the box, to put it in the oven, what to turn the oven on for, how long to turn it on for. So literally the leprechaun did say, they will do exactly what you tell them to do. So then another wish they want is to have a hot car with a driver who has a mind of his own. So hot car they get, a stolen car with a driver that will not listen to them. He literally does have a mind of his own. So the boys end up at the police station. The parents are on their way to come and get the boys. And so they're really worried. Well, the leprechaun shows up again, and he's like, "Well, boys, I'm going to make good on my promise, and I'm going to give you one more wish. This one is on me." and everything was back to the way it was. And they're standing in front of this cop who no longer knows why these boys are here. And they're like, oh, we just wanted to stop by and say hi. And then they leave. So, enjoyable little episode. One of my favorites. I really enjoyed going back and being able to refresh myself on this one. The next episode is Dead Run, which is a little bit darker episode. So, an out of work truck driver, Steve Railsback, gets a job driving in unfamiliar territory and learns to his horror that he is delivering a cargo of condemned souls to hell. Um, Interesting episode. And Steve Railsback does pretty much redeem himself in this, in that he realizes during the course of this job that some of these condemned souls don't belong in hell, that they didn't do anything that was really that bad to lead to an eternity in hell. And so you see some scenes of him asking what these people did to get in this shape. And the ones that didn't really do anything really bad, they didn't murder anybody or anything, he lets them go. So that's a basic story of that one. The next episode, A Profile in Silver. I like this one, a very historical episode. So, a historian from the future returns to 1963 to study President John F. Kennedy, but unwittingly prevents his assassination, setting in motion a disastrous chain of events. Which this one pretty much is like the butterfly effect episode, is what I think of it as. And so, by preventing the assassination of John F. Kennedy, this futuristic historian causes violent tornadoes. He causes, or he almost causes a nuclear war. And has to go and fix things basically. And he basically has to tell John F. Kennedy, hey, we got to go back and fix this. If you don't get assassinated, things are going to go terribly, terribly wrong for the future. And so what ends up happening basically is the historian switches places with John F. Kennedy, and John F. Kennedy becomes the historian, and the historian becomes John F. Kennedy and gets assassinated. The next episode is called Button Button. Kind of creepy episode here. So a young couple played by Brad Davis and Mayor Winningham are strapped for cash, or told that if they push a certain button, someone they don't know will die, and they will immediately receive $200,000. So eventually, the wife does push the button, and the guy that gave them the button unit comes back, gives them a suitcase full of money, and says that he will take the button unit to someone else, and they will be offered the same terms as this couple. And the last thing he says to them was, you can trust me that this button unit will be taken to someone you don't know. So you can only imagine what the course of events may be for these people. So that brings us to the final disc in this season, disc 6. This next episode, Need to Know, is this is a very creepy episode. Really stands out from some of the even some of the other darker episodes in this season. This one's called Need to Know. It is also directed by Paul Lynch. So a government investigator played by William L. Peterson finds insanity spreading from person to person like a plague in a small, otherwise normal town. This also stars Frances McDormand. Um, yeah, this one gives me cold chills watching it because there is one particular scene where the investigator and Frances McDormand's character go to this old woman's house. They're trying to figure out why people are going insane in this town. And she basically is acting really nice to them, offering them tea and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, she just gets a knife and tries to stab them. Um, so that is a creepy scene. And there are other creepy scenes where, like, the investigators goes to this guy's house, and evidently this is the guy that got the whole insanity thing started because he says that he knows the truth about everything. He knows the secrets, all the secrets, and he's like following this investigator around trying to whisper it in his ear. And the investigator knows, oh, I can't let him tell me this or I'll go insane too. So he leaves and goes back to tell Frances McDormand to turn off her radio because this crazy guy is going to go on the air and tell everybody the secrets. And so he comes in and he's ranting and raving, and she's like, "You're being rude." And this kid, and maybe the mother, or maybe it's two kids, come out from one of the other rooms, and they have evidently told Frances McDormand's character the secret. She walks up to the investigator and whispers in his ear, and the last scene you hear him go, "Ah," like that, so you know the insanity has spread. The next episode is Red Snow. A Russian KGB officer, George Dzundra, is sent to a Serbian gulag to investigate a series of mystery shrouded murders of Communist Party officials. And by that, I mean they tell the story of some officials that were killed. One slit his own throat, another was attacked by wolves. So the KGB officer ends up going where this all was supposed to take place, and finds a bevy of vampires. And evidently, he gets turned into a vampire at some point because when he goes back to talk to his guys, the last scene of the episode, he smiles and he's got vampire teeth. Now, again, it was an entertaining episode, but not one of my favorites. I really thought it was a little too long. Um, if I wasn't watching this to refresh my memory in order to do this stream, I probably would end up fast forwarding through a lot of it. But because I was going to do this stream and I wanted to adequately cover all the episodes, I did sit through it this time. So the next episode is Take My Life, Please. A callous stand-up comedian comic killed in a car crash awakens bewildered at the club Limbo, where he must perform endlessly, only receiving laughs recounting the most painful details about his life. So basically, night after night, this is his hell. He has to tell about all the horrible, horrible things that he's done before he died. Beating up a prostitute and allowing his mother to freeze to death. And different things like that. And he has to do this every night. And this is what people find entertaining in hell, I guess, is for him to tell the most horrible things that he's done. Interesting episode. Again, not one of my favorites, but it is well worth watching, though.
The next episode is The Devil's Alphabet. Ben Cross is Frederick, who signs an oath binding him beyond death to the members of a secret society. And so these boys, when they graduate from college, uh, had the formation of the Devil's Alphabet. And the one guy makes this decree that even in death, they still must attend these meetings, I guess every year. But very odd occurrences and very dark occurrences start occurring to the members of the Devil's Alphabet, where a lot of the guys end up committing suicide until the one guy that made this decree that even in death, they must still attend these meetings. And yeah, bad things befall this final guy as well as his former friends. Interesting episode, quite dark. Definitely does not have a happy ending. Another one that I would not suggest watching if you're feeling depressed at the time. I would watch one of these more comedic episodes. A good episode, but quite dark. The next episode is The Library. So, a woman who begins a new job in a bizarre library that contains books on every living person decides to make a minor change in one of the books. This stars Frances Conroy and Uta Hagen. And this one is another one that has that butterfly effect running through it, because when the woman changes something in one of the books, it ends up altering a lot of other things. And so things get really out of control near the end of the episode. And she has to talk to the person that hired her and tell them what they have done. And she tells her to go get any of the books that she's made changes to right away. And I will leave it up to you guys to watch the episode to determine whether things end up good for the woman or not. Because this is one that I kind of don't want to give the ending away for that one. The next episode is Shadow Play. This one again is directed by Paul Lynch. I really like this one. This was a very interesting story with a lot of twists and turns. So Adam Grant, played by Peter Coyote, who waits on death row to be hanged, believes that everyone around him is a figment of his reoccurring nightmare. And if he is executed, they will cease to exist. This aired on the original Twilight Zone in an episode starring Dennis Weaver. I have not seen the original episode, but I really like this version of it. I think Peter Coyote is really good as the death row inmate. And I love the way this is designed, because at first glance you may think, oh, this guy's full of shit. You know, Peter Coyote's character is full of shit. These people are not figments of his imagination or figments of a nightmare. But it soon becomes apparent that they may very well be, because of the weird occurrences that occur throughout this story. So Shadow Play is a really good one. It is definitely one of my favorites. The next episode is Grace Note. This is a very poignant episode. Another one that, although it has a kind of happy ending, I don't think I'd want to watch if I was already depressed. Famed opera singer Julia Menendez Johnson stars as a young girl frustrated because she hasn't been able to pursue her dream of performing
grand opera, and then she is given a startling glimpse into the future. And this startling glimpse into the future is granted to her by her sister who's dying of leukemia. Um, Again, very poignant episode, um, full of, all kinds of emotions in this. You have the heartbreak of losing a sibling to a terrible disease, but her sibling is also able to give her the greatest gift, when she gives her a glimpse into the future of, she thinks at this point in time things couldn't get any worse. She's losing her sister to this horrible disease. Um, and she doesn't think she's ever going to reach the the ultimate goal that she wants, which is to become an opera singer. So, like the episode, but very poignant and tugs at the heartstrings quite a bit. The next episode, A Day in Beaumont, is kind of horrific. So, an earnest young scientist and his fiance, Victor Garber and Stacy Nelkin, really see a flying saucer land and bug eyed aliens emerge, but they can't get anyone to believe them. And why can't they get anyone to believe them? Because the townsfolk are aliens. And one of the final scenes is, um, the husband, or the young scientist has to watch his fiance's face fall off, and she's one of these bug-eyed aliens, and he's like freaking out. And then the next scene after that, another guy comes into town, and he's got to find the sheriff because he's seen a flying saucer and he's seen the aliens. And the young scientist is now the sheriff, and he's like, "A flying saucer, you say?" And then you hear the Twilight Zone music. So fun and kind of creepy sci-fi episode for you guys. So the very last episode of this season is The Last Defender of Camelot. The story was by Roger Zelanzi, um, and it was written by none other than George R. Martin. So Lancelot, played by Richard Kiley, is living in contemporary London. Is summoned by his ancient nemesis, the enchantress Morgan Le Fay, played by Jenny Agutter, to meet with Merlin, who has resurrected a grand plan to restore Camelot. But it's going to be very detrimental to modern or contemporary London when he does this. So Lancelot has got to make a decision. Does he go up against his old friend Merlin, or does he take out Morgan Le Fay? So I won't give that away, but very interesting story. People that like King Arthur stories will probably really, really enjoy it. I probably didn't enjoy it as much as those people would, but I did enjoy it somewhat. So I didn't really have anybody in here tonight. Texas was in here for a little bit. I saw some people come in and out. But I didn't really have the crew in here tonight. And again, I kind of blame myself for that, because I didn't really give I didn't really give enough of a heads up or promotion for this. So I've only got myself to blame on that. But I want to thank Texas. I know he's not in here now, but I want to thank Texas for stopping in, even though he may not be feeling the greatest. And I want to thank anybody else that was kind of coming in and out to see what Dana could be talking about tonight. So hopefully some of you will get to watch this
at a later time. I do see that there's somebody in here now. So um, I'm sorry that I've reached the end of this live stream in case you were really, really wanting to watch this. But the good thing is, this will be on YouTube. And you can watch it at your heart's content. I have went on for almost 2 hours. I do want to remind anybody that's either watching this now or that may be watching it later, um, that starting next Tuesday, I will be starting my series of Tarantino streams called "There's Something About Tarantino." So you can look forward to that. I will be doing a new My Dinner with De Palma Thursday. So you guys can look forward to that. We will be having a special watch along for the original Friday the 13th on Friday, which is a Friday the 13th. So to celebrate, we'll be doing a watch along for it starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. My Dinner with De Palma will be Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And Saturday, we will be having a watch along for Slumber Party Massacre, the original Slumber Party Massacre, and not the horrible remake. So we got all of that coming up. And with all that being said, I'm going to skedaddle on out of here for the night, and I will see everyone on the flip side. Y'all have a good night now.